Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and I just finished House of the Dragon Episode 2, The Rogue Prince. And a lot of my thoughts that were in the first episode kind of carried over to this one. It was very meh, very inoffensive, nothing I really just hated, nothing that I really liked. It was an incredibly neutral experience for me going into it. And, it's very much continuing off the first one. So at least that's a good thing. I feared that at some point very soon, the quality would dip substantially. And there's still very much a possibility of that happening. Very much a possibility of it going full season 8 and, full modern woke as well. It's just a lot of opportunities to go poorly and really not a whole lot of hope, in my opinion, of it actually getting better. So just sticking on the meh track is a positive thing for me because I just don't know if it can really get into the good territory. But there were a lot of things in this episode that I enjoyed. There was little to no action, so that got a little boring, but it was still a lot of cool stuff that they were setting up. Then the political intrigue was a little bit better than the previous episode, and getting back into the roots of Game of Thrones a little bit. And there weren't really those intense interactions between characters where they are trying to both outsmart each other. None of those classic interactions, so nothing that great, but there were a few little political stuff that I really enjoyed. Before I get any further, there will be brief spoilers, so spoiler alert. The majority of the scenes that I liked were actually between Viserys and Alicent. A lot of their interactions I rather enjoyed, and I very much understood why Viserys was connecting with her to such a degree to make his ultimate decision at the end of the episode. There is actual genuine chemistry between the characters despite the decades of age that is between them, and it does seem like they're good for each other in a certain sense. Now it's, of course, very uncomfortable with her age, but the actress is at least an adult. It's an awkward situation, but it's a better situation than if he had done the Valerian kid, because that was awkward as hell. Just the romantic walk through the gardens with this 12-year-old girl and her talking about how she wouldn't have to lay with the king till she was 14. That was a little bit too much. Like, I was getting heavily uncomfortable during those sequences. It is something that happened back in the day, and the age of consent and the age of wedding was a lot lower in medieval times. It still was very uncomfortable for me to watch. That was beyond just good. But the actual conversations between Alice and Viserys were very intriguing and some things that I really did enjoy. And another conversation like that I did enjoy was between the princess and her aunt. That initial conversation, I did like a lot of the things that were being said. Like, they're not just automatically allies just because they're women. No, they're still trying to manipulate each other. They still have grievances against each other. And I really enjoyed that until I watched the behind the scenes at the end of the episode. They really should stop doing those because they do more harm than good. They harm that scene. They harm the whole bird thing scene in the first episode. And then, of course, there's the classic one from Game of Thrones where Dany just kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet. So those behind the scenes stuff at the end really damaged this scene and several other scenes like it, that it's just stop doing those for real, man. For things that I didn't like, the princess I thought was a lot less likable in this episode than she was prior. Nothing too extreme. It was still just like, she's breaking the rules, making statements, making her voice be heard, but she's saying stuff that isn't that good. Like her whole just send me down with the dragon riders to take care of the crab feeder situation, and that's not a good idea. That is not a good idea as expressed by everyone on the council besides the sea snake. Is we don't want to provoke war unless we absolutely have to. She's like, let's just blow them up then. It's like, no, we want to prevent war, not dragon fire all over them. So she was just a little unlikable, not to an extreme degree, and then she was mad at people for not liking her advice, and then she wasn't really scolded, at least a little bit, for her whole Dragonstone thing. He's just like, you did what now? And then he's like, oh, your mother. No, you needed to scold her for disobeying the king and her father. That is a big deal. It doesn't matter if she's a woman or not. She broke the rules, and so maybe it was for the right reasons. Maybe it's what needed to happen, but there still need to be consequences. Even if you ultimately do the right thing, when you break the rules, there should be consequences. But that was a little annoying. And I think the episode's biggest flaw was actually how little of Daemon was in it. He was the clear fan favorite from the first episode, and he wasn't in this until the last half an hour, and only barely so in that really 1-2 scenes. and I really want more Matt Smith. More Matt Smith is always a good thing. So his absence throughout the episode did cause some problems for it, hurt my investment, because I really am not invested in any other characters besides just him, just Damon. And so that's a big thing. And then the CGI again was a little off when it came to the dragons. For everything else, it was great. For the weapons, the costume design, all that was great, with the exception of Otto's armor from when he went to Dragonstone. I don't know what it was. That one just looked really cheap. Overall, this episode was extremely mad. The politics were at least starting to get somewhere, starting to get some interactions, and, you know, their choices having impact, and choosing the one bride over the other bride is an interesting conversation to be had, and some interesting interactions that came along with it. But I really hope that this stuff with the crab feeder is building to something cool. Like, I don't like how the crab feeder looks from the end of the episode, but the action that might come with it could be really interesting. And seeing the sea snake teaming up with Damon is something that I, you know, was surprised about, at least initially. By the end of the episode, I saw it coming. But that's a union that I can see causing a lot of conflict and being rife for character intrigue and character development and some politics. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing how that develops more than anything else in the show so far. More than the crab feeder situation, more than everything else, just Damon and the sea snake working together is something that I see is very interesting. And again, overall, this was a very meh episode. I'd probably give it another 5 out of 10 like I did episode 1. And it did suffer from its lack of Damon and from its characterization of the princess, but there was enough intriguing conversations, especially between Viserys and Alicent, that kept me invested throughout the episode to make up for that. And I am looking forward to next week, but it's still very meh. It's so meh. If it sticks on this track, I might just stop watching. If it doesn't, like, fall off the rails bad and I can hate watch it, and or if it doesn't just get good, I really would seem to struggle to really care enough to be invested to make these reviews, because there's just so little going on and so little to get attached to. There's so little emotion being elicited by these episodes, positively or negatively, that I find it very difficult. So we'll see how episode 3 turns out, but for right now, and pleasantly surprised that it stuck with the meh from the previous episode. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.